911, what's your emergency?
Yes, I fell out of a tree stand on the river. I can't feel my legs. Oh.
Just try to stay as calm and still as you can, okay?
Okay.
So I'd reached and kind of grabbed onto this branch here, and then I was sliding my left leg down the side of the tree, and this branch broke, and that's when I fell. And I remember my feet landing next to my head right here, kind of compressing like this. I tried to stand up. I obviously couldn't stand up. My legs were in a different position than my brain was telling me they were supposed to be. And that's when I kind of knew there was a lot more wrong than just, falling from the tree. And I felt like I was screaming the whole time in pain and crying, and because I knew something was pretty bad when I couldn't feel my legs.
And normally when Clint is hunting and he calls me, it's because he shot something. I could immediately tell that something was not right. He was panting and kind of hyperventilating, and all he said to me was, "I can't feel my legs." And so I just kind of stopped, and I just said, "What?" And he said, "I can't feel my legs."
Am I gonna make this out alive? I didn't know to the extent I couldn't see behind me if I'd cut anything, if there was any bleeding I couldn't feel, down there. So I was, just hoping I'd be able to see, my kids and my wife again.
We got a phone call from Shelby, and she was very upset, and she said, "Clint has had an accident down on the river." And I said, "I'll be down there in just a few minutes." It was getting dark right then at that time, and so we knew we needed to get moving.
He informed me that he had reached out to a few of his buddies, dropped his pin, so they knew his location, and they were also coming.
The EMS truck had arrived there, and they got to that particular area, but I don't think they knew specifically where he was. Thanks to his friends that were there, they told the EMS, "Come follow us. This is where we need to go to get to the edge of the bank to get to Clint."
And when the paramedics and my buddies got to me, they had to put me on a back brace. All 6 of them had to pick me up and walk me through that water and then up the hill to the top of the location. At that time I was about probably 240 pounds. So to get me out of those woods and across that creek and up that hill is going to be everything we had.
I could see Clint strapped in. He was certainly in pain at that time as he was coming up that hill. Clint never complains about pain, but this time I knew he was hurting bad.
And when I got there, he was getting loaded in the ambulance. He was conscious, and his wife was trying to talk to him, and I knew it wasn't good. It was a scary moment, it really was.
And I get to him, and I just kind of hold his face, and I give him a kiss, and then we just kind of were just looking around at what comes next, because we didn't know. They had just gotten him out of the woods, and from what I heard was very traumatic. He screamed the whole time because he was just in so much pain. He did not look like himself. He's 6'2", he's strong, he can do anything, and he looked scared. For the first time in his life, I saw him scared, and that scared me. But at that point, we were in survival mode, and we were just trying to figure out what we needed to do.
Really glad that she was there and was able to, be there and potentially, if that was our last time, be able to, be together.
They did give us the option to put him on the ambulance or use the helicopter. I asked her, I said, "Well, how long would it take you to get him with the ambulance?" And she said 45 minutes to an hour. And I said, how long would it take you with the helicopter? She said 10 minutes. And then it was just like, well, that's what we're gonna do. Because we did know it was a back injury. We just didn't know the extent of it at that point, and we really didn't want him going on gravel and bumpy roads, and over all of that, we wanted him as stable as possible. It just felt surreal. You never want to see one of your loved ones, especially your best friend, be taken off in a helicopter. And that is the first thing that kind of registered with me that this is really serious.
I just happened to be on call that night when Mr. Bickham came in following his trauma, and as usual, I got notified by my residents about what's been happening with him, and that was the first time that I became aware of him. He was having difficulty moving his legs and had a lot of pain, and subsequently underwent a lot of imaging studies that showed some problem with his spine. And we start discussing about possible surgical intervention given his problems.
We were sitting in a room, kind of waiting on the doctor's decision. Shelby and my dad were sitting in the room with me. They come in and say, hey, we're going to do emergency surgery now. They wheel me back in there, kind of get me prepped up in the room. I just remember going to sleep and then waking up in ICU.
He essentially sustained an incomplete spinal cord injury from a burst fracture of his T12 vertebral body, which resulted in a lot of compression on his spinal cord and subsequently resulted in a spinal cord injury that was causing weakness of his legs. Based on all the imaging studies and the history, we felt that his injury was unstable and probably needed some type of a surgical fixation. There were these metal screws that we put into the bone part of the spine, and we connect them to these metal rods to stabilize him. He had severe compression of his spinal cord, so we removed some of his bone as well to create more space for his spinal cord that was injured.
We were just always hoping for the best. When you have a surgery, we're thinking that's great that we can get that done. Now the work's going to begin from this point on.
The days in the ICU, my right leg, I could kind of twitch a little bit here and there, but my left leg, I still couldn't move it at all. I could kind of feel once you got below my knees, that's when it started feeling distant on touch. And then I couldn't feel anything below my ankles on either leg. That's when I kind of knew everything's changed now.
We would be outside the door there in the waiting area. There were a lot of people there that came by to check on Clint. As we talked with him, he was still uncomfortable, but they were doing everything they could to help him with the pain. And they basically looked at us and said, we're starting rehab tomorrow.
We started doing physical therapy and occupational therapy there in ICU.
Having good friends is, one of the most important things you have. Clint's the type that if they need anything, he's going to be there for them. And the same with them, that they're going to do everything they can for him. And throughout the process, they would look at Clint. Anything you need, you let us know. We'll take care of it. The house, the kids, let us know.
My goal was, if I could walk out of ICU, I'd try to, but wanting to have as much of my life back before the injury, being able to be there for my kids and my wife and, being able to coach kids growing up. They're about to be 3, about to be 5. They got their whole lives ahead of them. I want to be able to be a part of their lives, fully, that my parents were to me, and kind of give them that same type of childhood that I had.
And he's straight up and down. I'm telling you.
With this type of injury, it's a long-term recovery. We usually work on getting these patients into a rehab setting.
We transported him with an ambulance to Baylor that Saturday after he fell. He would do 3 hours of therapy every single day. He got home on Christmas Eve. The kids are very, very excited, and he's just in his home and not able to do the things he wants to do. And for about a week and a half, it was probably one of the hardest times that we've ever gone through in our marriage. Not for anything that he was doing wrong or I was doing wrong. It was just doing everything that had been done for him over the last 2 months, and also being a mom and a wife, and him trying to figure out how he can be a dad and a husband and himself on top of all the medical things that he was having to do and I was having to do.
Every session we go to, there has always been improvement every single time. I would drive him there to the facility.
Feel pretty stable?
We had to push him where his systems are being overwhelmed, and he had to have that leap of faith to say, like, I know I'm going to push to failure, and I'm like, that's exactly what we want. That's going to push your sensory systems to get better, to get your balance stronger.
You got this.
And the family was very, very much involved right from the beginning. And I remember Shelby letting me know that as much as possible, they wanted his therapy to be started and be aggressive. And if he could come every day, if he could come twice a day, like whatever we could get him in, she would be grateful for.
Big step.
What we've done over time is repeatedly assess for what's coming back. He's gotten some more sensory return, a little bit lower, and he's gotten a lot more muscle strength. You always focus on function, doing transfers, doing things where he had to use his legs, whether or not he needed his hands to help, doing a lot of things in weight bearing and pre-gait.
When he came to see us, he could not walk, he couldn't drive, he could not stand to make a meal, he couldn't work, he couldn't do any of the things that he was doing prior, mainly from the not being able to ambulate. I think that's what stood out the most to me was his mentality about rehab. He was so resilient during the whole process. If I asked him to do something, he usually would give me a little side eye or crazy face, but he was going to do it and he was going to give 120%. That was all he was focused on, and he was going to be better. When I started first working with him, he couldn't drive. He couldn't stand up by himself. He couldn't dress himself. He couldn't take care of all of the daily self-care things that he needs to take care of. And now he's independent. He's able to do everything, pretty much. Maybe with a modification, but he's able to do it.
His dad would take him every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday, stay with him, send us videos. They spent way too much time together. They argued a lot. And then on the breaks and when I could, I would take him. And then most recently, he is driving, which has been very wonderful, not only for us, but for him, because he has his independence back.
When you get involved with such a good story like this, it makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel good about what you do and what you have gone through and kind of things that you could do for other people that's out there. It's one of those catalysts that keeps you going for the future as well. So, it's always good to be around this kind of story, obviously.
I don't think he's going to have any limits. Whatever he wants to do, whatever he puts his mind to, I think he can do it.
I'm so thankful for every one of them and the care that they've given our entire family the entire time. I couldn't have asked for better care.
Thank you. We had to navigate something that we didn't know how to navigate, and they helped us. And he's stronger because of it. And he didn't just help him, but for my kids, because they're so young. And for me to have my husband back. This is all new, and they helped us get him back.
Thank you. I wouldn't be here without you. I I wouldn't be able to play with my kids. I wouldn't be able to go to work and spend time with my family and enjoy life again. I wouldn't be here without you.